Hi, everyone, and welcome to Dobermann, a design and innovation firm here in Stockholm. Today, we're going to explore a very exciting topic of how we can use tech as a catalyst to basically improve the world we live in. And with me today, I have Anna Rajat, who is an investor, entrepreneur, and co-founder of Heart17. I have Clara Leander, who is a business director at Dobermann, and I have Tove Blomgren, who is creative director at Sally. We'd like this to be a little bit more of an interaction section with you as well. So why don't you, in the chat, while we are talking, share with us some examples that you've seen in the world where we've been using tech as a catalyst to make acceleration towards UN global goals. So please share that with us. And with that, I'd like to give a warm welcome to Clara and Tove.
So much, Lisa. So in 2015, the world came together to make a plan. It was a blueprint on how to eradicate poverty and inequality, how to safeguard our planet and prosperity and peace for humanity. And as helpful as these goals have been to make us align around the common agenda and how much action it has spurred, we have to, 5 years in, recognize that we are in fact failing. And we're not on track to reach any of the goals. And what happened? So the pandemic didn't help. It has pushed us back decades when it comes to poverty, for example. But even before the pandemic, there was not a single country that was on track to reach the goals within the next decade. So in reality, the reason is as simple as it is obvious. We're not trying hard enough. And even when facing these monumental existential challenges, the change we're bringing is too slow. We're pushing action into the future. We're still tinkering around within the very system that caused the mess in the first place. And we are not accelerating the change at the pace needed. And we know we can. We've seen it this past year, what we can do when we act out of urgency, when we pull together. And we do amazing things out of urgency, when we're bold, when we have the power of acceleration, of exponential change. So the good news is that we have a powerful ally in this, one that's almost been sitting on the sidelines so far. And yes, it's technology. And if you line up the global goals and put all this powerful tech that is at our disposal next to it, then the opportunities are almost endless. We see things happening already. We have drones who are analyzing agricultural land to reduce pesticides and fertilization and reducing water use. We see big data analysis and visualizations that are helping nudge organizations and individuals towards more responsible consumption and actions. We see blockchain being used to bring transparency into global supply chains, which could not only create much more sustainable supply chains, but also reduce slave labor or child labor. We have our friends over at Grace Health who are using chatbots to bring women's health clinics to the global south. And we could use virtual reality to create experiences that don't require people to fly or reduce emissions. So looking at it, there are so many ways that we could use technology to accelerate the global goals. And the potential for impact here is so huge. But there are two things that are important to remember in this. So we have this powerful ally at our disposal, but it's not a magic bullet. it's not going, there's no scenario where we continue with business as usual and then just change the tech around and continue as it was. We know that we need transformational change in every aspect of society. And that's not going to change. But we can use tech as this powerful, exponential, scalable force in this. The other thing to remember is that this is not just going to happen by itself. We need you. That's where you come in. So every single one of you, whether you're a leader, entrepreneur, whether you're a coder, project manager, student, you are going to have a role to play in this. So we have for you a call to arms of sorts, a list of things that we want to challenge you and ourselves with. So the first one is, if you're ever thinking, am I doing enough? It's probably because you could be doing more. This is not the time to play it safe. This is the time for big, bold bets, to do the almost ridiculously, unimaginably ambitious. And we want you to think, what is your moon landing? What is that thing that is so crazy that it could almost work? Now you're onto something. And one example of those like wildly ambitious and bold initiatives is this Indigo Ag, who launched the Terraton initiative a couple of years ago. And it was a call for agricultural players to contribute to sucking down 1 trillion tons of carbon over the next decade. And they're doing it with a lot of sophisticated technology, analyzing satellite images, using AI, machine learning, big digital platforms. And that could basically reverse climate change. Toyota is another player who is doing something that's almost on the verge of insane. They are prototyping in New City. So we know that cities account for 70% of global emissions. So cities are going to be a key part in the solution as well. And what they started doing construction of just last week is this brand new city where everything is built sustainable from the get-go. All the energy is renewable, all the transportation is electrified and on the ground. All of the infrastructure and mobility is made for biking and walking and community shared vehicles. And this is going to be like a living lab. So Toyota recognizes that one city is not going to change anything, but if we scale the solutions and share them, then we could have much greater accelerating exponential impact. So they are going to invite researchers into this city and they share all the solutions. That brings us to our second point.
Hi, everyone. So we need to move fast and we need to open source everything. And I mean everything, not just tech. Without Open Pharma or Open Vax, Gun-Britt here would not have received her vaccine the 27th of December. We sort of created like a medical miracle that usually takes 15 years in less than a year. It's insane. And the science world have a lot of experience doing this. So the commercial world really has a lot to learn from this. Another really good example is the sports brand Houdini, who has released a new jacket.
A fully circular fleece jacket engineered specifically to prevent microfiber shedding. But one garment is not going to solve the problem. So to inspire change, we're releasing it as open source. Every component, every design decision, and the circular principles behind the MonoAir is now available for anyone to learn from and build on. After all, we share the same home and we share the same problems. Why not share the solutions?
The project MonoAir, and I think this is a really, really good example of how, you know, if you do it only for yourself, you won't succeed. But if you sort of do it collectively, you will really reach your goals and targets. So I really encourage you to do more of open source. And this one, design of the 7th generation, is a quite tricky one because we need to act really, really fast. But while we're acting and moving really fast, we also need to think about the 7th generation. We're sort of inspired by a generational thinking mindset. So I really encourage you to think, when you make bold decisions, think about the 7th generations ahead. This philosopher, Roman, he has applied the 7th generational thinking, and he has been inspired by the indigenous communities when they make decisions, they think about what would the 7th generation think about when you do this. Another really interesting movement in Japan called the Future Design Movement has applied these principles, and they work for the local municipalities, counties in Japan, and they role play. So they go in, and you see they have different robes. So one group, they are today's generation, and the other group, they are the generation of 2060, and they sort of role play and make very important decisions. And what's really interesting in this is that make gutsy and really bold decisions for the future that are also very sustainable. And again, the minister of the unborn, Wales have a minister of the future generation. How cool is that? And I really hope that we see more of these type of roles in the future. So as Tove said, and us from Dobermann, we really encourage you, when in doubt, go bolder, open source everything, and I mean everything. And when you ever are gonna make a difficult decision, try to think about 7 generations ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Tove and Clara. When in doubt, go bold. How does that make you feel, Anna?
I think that is exactly what we need to do. That's the only way forward right now with all the challenges we are facing, actually.
Yeah. So I read in the chat, one of you said being big is all about this, sharing knowledge. And I think that is exactly what you were referring to when you were talking about open sourcing. So we thought, let's have a little bit of a chat.
Yes.
Let's share, Anna. So, you know, one of the things that Tove was mentioning was these tipping points. And what tipping points do you think are too risky to bet against?
So actually you can't just choose one, because all of them are so interconnected. They are really, really dependent on each other. So climate change, eradicate extreme poverty, inequalities are interconnected. And that we can see, for example, as migration is becoming the new normal. But one thing that actually right now worries me most is the increasing mental illness, particularly among young people, because that spread a kind of sense of hopelessness. And if you doesn't feel hope, then it's extremely, extremely difficult to ask you to act and to do things. So we need to switch that around to be able to fight climate change, inequalities, poverty, and all the other challenges in the UN Global Goals.
So that I just want to repeat that. If you cannot feel hope, you cannot act. So some of you clever people out there who have the opportunity to touch young people, maybe, you know, this notion of spreading hope is where we need to start.
Yeah.
to even be able to change.
Yeah, that's what I believe in right now. And that's also the nice thing with that is that everybody can start doing that. It's not difficult.
No,
actually.
It's not difficult. And I think that one of the things we've been talking about is spreading that hope can actually be about hearing about other stories and things
Absolutely.
like that.
Absolutely.
How do you think we can create that exponential change that we need? I mean, I'm asking you the big questions here, Anna.
Yeah. I love them. But, you know.
Yeah, be bold.
No, but that's a little bit connected to the first one, because the fact is that the last couple of years, the last 10 years, I would say, when sustainability has been on the agenda, it has been a lot about shame and blame, and also what you shouldn't do. You shouldn't eat meat, you shouldn't fly, you shouldn't do this and that. And that becomes a little bit overwhelming, and particularly in a time where hopelessness is spreading. So I think we need to shift towards really looking at how can we use technology, the sustainable transformation, innovation, and passion to drive that, or to accelerate, I will say, that change. Because when we feel that passion and we see all the opportunities that you and I see every day in our daily work, then it's also so much easier. And I believe that will accelerate the change we need.
I'm taking in. So I know for a fact that you are not just talking about this, you are also acting, and you are working on a quite radical project like right now, and where you are also using tech as a catalyst, which is our theme here today.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how you see tech as an enabler?
Absolutely. So I think you're referring to the project Heart 17.
Yes.
Which is a global initiative for hope and action to accelerate the UN global goals using innovation and creativity, or celebrating innovation and creativity. And one of the things that we really figure out is, again, how can we engage young people globally, all over the world, people that already are doing things today, how can they inspire others? And they are doing marvelous things in their different countries, but no one knows about it. So that's where we really can use tech to amplify all these young people's voices and inspire each other to make action. So I think what tech really does is to go global. It accelerates change, but it also gives everybody a voice. It's very inclusive. Sometimes you can think about tech as something really difficult and you get a little bit scared, but it's actually on the contrary. Tech is such an enabler for a more inclusive society. And that is something we really need now. So I hope this will be a massive platform for hope and action for not only young people, but everybody.
I think you all should be on the watch for the release of that platform, so that we can all activate ourselves and put some light on these young activists who are already today doing what we want them to do more of. So look out for Heart 17. What do you do as a bold leader to make this change happen? I mean, you already shared one example, but what else? What do you do more?
I think bringing sustainability into every decision you take. To be able to do that, you need to be bold, but you also need to all the time think about radical togetherness or radical collaboration, because we can't solve this ourselves. We need to work together, civil society, politicians, business, and if we do that, we have a really possibility to drive that change. So what I'm trying to do, since I've been in all this sector, as you know, is to bringing the people to the table, to have the new voices, new thoughts, and then we can drive the change.
And it sounds easy when you say you bring them to the table and then you get them maybe to collaborate. But for people who think, but we are so different and we don't speak the same language, do you have any tricks of how you make, how you make a language, or how you come together from different perspectives?
I think what we need now is to dare to lead with our hearts, to be much more transparent and honest. And if you do that, you can't go wrong, because that's our common language.
Mm.
And you know, sustainability is not about egos and winning. It's really more about how can I serve? And then you put the challenge on the table instead of like my business or what I want is this. And then it's just happening. People are starting to talk and solve problems together. And that's what we hope for.
So bringing yourself, bringing authenticity, and then take that bold problem that Tove was talking about and aiming so high that you need to collaborate.
Yeah, and you need to dare to make mistakes as well. Be vulnerable. It's okay, because this is so difficult. So it's just invite people to join you. And if you show them that you're vulnerable, then people will start collaborate, I promise.
So if you show your heart and aim high, people would like to collaborate. And with that, Anna, I'll invite you back for questions later. Thank you now.
You.
And I'll invite Tove to the stage again. So welcome, Tove.
Yes, thank you. So we saw a question in the chat and said that how can you then ensure that the technology doesn't have any unintended consequences? And this is where the generational thinking that Clara was talking about is so useful. It's about not just thinking what solves the problem here and now, not just for next generation, but many generations ahead. So we thought we would wrap this up by providing a method for you, because that's hard. It's really difficult. We're not wired to make decisions that way. So I would like everyone to stand up and make some room and make sure that you can take 2 steps ahead. And you don't have to be able to see me, but you have to be able to hear me. So stand up and close your eyes. So now, imagine a child that is important to you. It could be your own child, a niece, nephew, friend's child. Now imagine their face. Imagine their voice, what they love to do. So take 1 step ahead while still having your eyes closed. You've traveled 30 years into the future. What is the world like? What is that child now dreaming of and thinking of, hoping for? Take another step. The person is now 90 years old. It's their birthday. They're surrounded by their children and grandchildren. What happened during their life? What are they talking about? How are they talking about you? Imagine them talking about how you inspired them, what you did to make the world better. Now take 2 steps back, come back to 2021. You can open your eyes. So that was one tool to gain the kind of perspective that is so difficult to have otherwise. And next time you're making an important decision, maybe try to time travel first and see if your decision changes. So with that, we're opening up for questions.
Thank you, Tove. That was a time travel that I will bring with me. So if you want to join our Q&A, you need to click on the bottom, and it's only 50 people I've heard who can join us. So please click. And I'd like to thank Clara and Anna and Tove for this session, and hope to see you in the Q&A. See you soon.